Right, so an interesting question, and a very recent question, because the World Wide Web is a very recent phenomenon. So we've got to go back to the origins of it in Revelation chapter 13. Again, I'll put it up on the screen there. And in chapter 13, John is shown history. He's shown a beast that comes out of the sea. And then in verse 11, he sees another beast that comes out of the earth, which had 2 horns like a lamb and spake as a dragon, and does great wonders, verse 13. And then at the end of that, it's talking about making an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live, and that's a reference back to the first sea beast. We're talking about history here in the context of Revelation. This is the Holy Roman Empire in the earth beast, and a new image was created, a copy of it. And so it goes on in verse 15, this image of the beast was given power by the beast, and verse 17, no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of his beast or the number of his name. Sorry, we should have read the end of verse 16, because it talks about causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And then verse 17, here is wisdom. The number of the beast is the number of a man, 666. Now, the image of the beast was a reference to the popes having their own empire. He ruled as a king, and just like the Romans had their order of Caesar, a Senate, Roman law, and legionaries, etc., so the Pope has his college of cardinals and canon law and all these things. And to the reference there, the Catholic Church is more Roman than it is Christian. So it's talking about a period in history which goes way back from the 700s, 800s through to almost to the 1800s. So this is referring to something long before the World Wide Web. But what does 666 stand for? Well, in Greek, and we believe that John was writing in Greek, letters had numerical values. So if you wanted to put a number, then you used the appropriate letters that made up that number and you added things together. And one of the words that is traditionally used as an interpretation of what 666 was standing for is Latinos, the Latin man, because this very much has to do with Rome, Daniel chapter 2. And if you add up 30 and 1 and 305 and 10 and 50 and 70 and 200, you'll come to 666. So the number of his beast is the number of man. So how do there are other suggestions as well, the vicar of God, and that adds up to 666 in the Latin, and in the Greek, the Latin kingdom, so that's another one. But Latinos is something which goes way, way back. Irenaeus, who was friendly with Polycarp, who was a disciple of John himself, proposes, and he lived between 130 and 200, that this Latinos probably is the interpretation. In other words, focus on the Latin kingdom, and when that takes religious power, then you know you're on the right one. Well, what about 666 being www? Well, we then would have to say we have to switch to Hebrew to get this. And Hebrew has exactly the same system of letters standing for numbers, and the same system as in the Greek, where unlike in our Western, the order of the numbers is important, because 674 is not the same as 476. But in Greek and Latin, it wouldn't make any odds, because you're going to be adding those numbers together. So in order to get www, which there isn't a W in Hebrew, the V is the nearest, which is 6. So www is 6 666, but it's not 666, it's 18, 6 plus 6 plus 6. And it's clear that what is being talked about here is nothing to do with the World Wide Web. It's about a power that influences and controls people, and if you don't belong to the church, if you haven't had the sign of the cross made on you, then for a long period of the Dark Ages, the true believers suffered dreadful persecution because they weren't part of that church. They hadn't had that mark. And the real killer piece is we go to the very next chapter, and the first verse gives us this contrast between those who have the mark of the beast in their forehead to the Lamb standing on Mount Zion with 144,000 having his Father's name written in their forehead.